What's up, Cubs fans? I'm Mike Bowling, the on-air social host, and I'm honored to be joined by the man, the myth, the legend, first baseman Frank Schwindel. You may know him as Frank the Tank or Schwindy City. Those are his nicknames. My nicknames include the Schwind Dog and Frankie Finger Guns. So, how's it going, my man? How's everything?
All good. How about yourself?
I can't complain, man. You guys got the sun out there. We got a little rain, but opening day is 1 week away, so we'll
Absolutely.
make it over here. All right, so I watched the episode, and right off the bat, you mentioned a quote that stuck with me, and it said, "Baseball doesn't care who you are," and I think that's such a strong quote. I think that we still, you guys are still playing a kid's game. So tell us in a few words who you are and how you grew to love the game of baseball.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, started off, I always loved the game, even you know, before I could talk. Probably, my parents showed me pictures of me hitting before I was two, stuff like that. But no, it's just always was a good time to me, and I was lucky enough to have a bunch of good friends playing with me growing up, so that made it that much better. Just going to the park and having some fun, and that kind of went from there. And then I realized I was good, so started putting the work in, and keep the same mindset to have some fun. But it kind of went off from there.
I love that, man. And that's so funny that you mentioned that you and your buddies in the episode, you talk about the wiffle ball games that go on in the backyard. Tell us a little bit about how intense those games used to be for you.
Yeah, they got competitive for sure. We threw that the chair for the strike zone back there, and we let it rip. But yeah, there was some hurt feelings some days, but always a barbecue or something after to laugh it off and have some fun. But no, we got competitive. Like I said, we had an awesome group, and I got lucky enough to play with them for a bunch of years, and we pretty much stuck together until college. And it was a lot. It was, like I said, it was a lot of fun, and good competition back there.
Love that. Just sharpening your tools in the backyard. Can't beat it.
Absolutely.
So you come from a long line of Franks, and we got to meet the youngest Frank in the start of the episode, which I thought was really cool. Do you have a favorite Frank that you looked up to as a kid, or athlete, celebrity? I'm a big fan of Frank Sinatra myself, so a lot of Frank action
That's
going
a good
on.
one. Yeah, a lot of my areas Italian. Frank Sinatra's big around there. I like Frank Thomas growing up because he just he hit the ball harder than anybody back then. So yeah, he was cool. I think I did a paper sometime on famous Frank. So a couple of those. But yeah, I'd say him for sure. He was just a monster and fun to watch.
Now you're one of the famous Franks. That's pretty cool,
Yeah,
huh?
not bad. Pretty
so,
cool.
so you mentioned something really awesome, and I think a lot of people can relate or would love to relate that you met Kat in middle school. So bravo. I
Yep.
heard you guys grew up 7 houses down from each other. What's
Yeah,
it?
something like that.
What?
I don't know the official count, but yeah, on the same road.
So what's it been like being so close to her and your families, and how's that helped you throughout your baseball career?
Oh, it's been awesome. Just because I think a lot of people don't realize what goes on behind the scenes. From whatever it is, rookie ball in Idaho to all the transactions and stuff like that. And she's been with me every step of the way. So I give her a ton of credit. Even to just now, she just set up my apartment and shipped my car and stuff like that. It's just I don't know if I could do it without her, and it's just it was a blessing that she was able to enjoy every step of the way with me.
That's awesome, man. It's so beautiful. And, you just mentioned kind of the behind the scenes of the game. You gave us a pretty honest, look into that business side when you talk about being DFA'd and shortly after
Mm.
placing a bid on a house. So what do you mean when you said you were pretty lost there for a second? Like, I don't want to bring back a ton of bad memories, but I think it's something that's really human that I think a lot of people could probably relate to.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like I said, it's a crazy game where I'm hitting above 300 with leading the league in homers to getting called up to Oakland to a home run the first AB, and then go down to hitting 150 in Iowa. So it's just like, what the hell just happened? But yeah, so those offers, they hit worse, especially when you're on cloud nine in the big leagues, and then 2 weeks later, snap of the fingers, you're back down. after all the work, after all the success, and you're just like, man, maybe this is it for me. But it's when those a bunch of negative thoughts come in the head, but you gotta shake those off and realize I was having an awesome season, and don't let getting sent down define that. So I'm still the same player. So I'll go from there, and I got called back up, and then everybody saw the rest and what I'm capable of. So it was just crazy emotions, and I'm happy I made the best of it.
Amen to that, man. I think it's just like a great testament to your perseverance and your hard work. And I talked to Patrick Wisdom a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned that he really had to work on the mental side of the game a little more even than the physical side. So tell me a little bit about how you navigated those muddy waters and what you did, maybe support from your family or your wife to kind of get you through.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm still battling that. It's good days and bad days in this game,
Mhm.
and nothing's given. Even now, nothing's guaranteed. But yeah, it's just I had a great support system. Everybody was in my corner. They know I can hit. Everybody knows I can hit. So it's just stringing those good games together, and swinging at good pitches, which is a lot of a mental approach. Um, but yeah, just never getting too high or too low, and just playing the game. And I think the biggest thing is having some fun, because once I started having more fun, it starts to show on the field, and people they they like to see it, and they enjoy it as well. So yeah, I'd say my family, my in-laws and my wife, I couldn't have done it without them. And just keeping the positive mindset, and you know it is a job, but it is a game. So you gotta enjoy, gotta put the work in, but have as much fun as you can and enjoy it while you're in the moment.
Yeah, I loved watching the episode, and just, I could feel just by the way you spoke and the way your family spoke, how close you are with them. And I even noticed the New York Giants stickers on the fridge. So I'm gonna
Oh
put
yeah.
you on the spot. You expecting big things from the G-men this year? I mean,
Oh, not at all. They've been
I'm a
they've been
I'm
letting.
I'm a Bears fan, so we've been rowing in the same boat for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. The 0-2 start has been pretty common to the start of the year, and then the fans not lose hope, but there's some negative energy in the tailgates after 2 3 weeks in. But I know they're in the situation where they got to make some moves, got to make some tough decisions this year. So we'll see what happens. Bunch of new faces in management, so we'll go from there. But when we're 0-0, the spirits are high. But we'll see how that first game, how they treat us that first game. But I think half the battle is getting a good crew to the tailgate and enjoying that, and having some fun in the lot, and going to the game. But we want to see some wins this year.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. I've enjoyed my time at Bears games more at the tailgate than actually inside the stadium. So we share that.
Yeah,
So we share that. So I love the shot in the episode of you celebrating on the field at Wrigley, and your family all had matching T-shirts on, and it just looked like such a great celebration for you. Talk about that whirlwind that was those last few months of the season, where you came up and you were just hitting everything, man. You were just mashing and helping us win games.
yeah,
And I think that the Cubs fan base really embraced you. So talk about when you really made your first impression here at Wrigley.
yeah. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I don't know if I said the story in the interview or when, but yeah, a bunch of my buddies were out there, and we go to Murphy's after the one game, and I went, had a couple of drinks, and nobody had any idea who we were. And then after that Labor Day series, we couldn't get in there or anywhere else on Clark without anybody at least recognizing my buddies, let alone me. So they were enjoying it more than I was. But no, it was just crazy how everything happened, because people didn't know who I was, and they had a fan favorite. They had a bunch of guys that they loved that just packed up and kind of went their own way, and had to step in and not necessarily fill those shoes, but somebody has to go play that position, and we had a
Mhm.
bunch of guys step up, and I played well, and the fans tended to they like me right away. So it was a lot of fun, and I fed off that energy as well. So I appreciate them, and like I said, it was a lot of fun just to have all that happen and to be a part of that, and all my friends and family to be there too.
Yeah, that was a hell of a day. I remember it was September 6th. It was a Sunday. I was actually at Murphy's and I think I'd left. I think I'd left like right before you got there. And my buddy texted me. It was like, yo, Frank Schwindel's in here and nobody actually even knows who he is. And I'm like sprinting trying to get back. But that was a really cool moment for us as fans. I know for sure because it feels like a lot of times the players can kind of go their own way and do their own thing, and
Mhm.
it was very very relatable to have you just walk across the street and go to Murphy's and grab some beers with your family and and your friends. And
Mhm.
that'll always stick with me because I always go to Murphy's right before every game in the bleachers, so it's not like it's something new to me, but I just thought that
Yeah,
was
it's a
really
great spot.
cool. Yeah,
Great spot.
it's a great bar. And I think I want to know a little bit more about like that culture for you. You talk about the tailgate, you talk about going over to Murphy's. Like I noticed that your family, your in-laws are Dominican. I'm half Dominican as well, so I'm thinking
Oh, there you go.
that part of it kind of trickled through on you from the party side. But talk a little bit about those parties, man. What's your favorite food, and tell me how they're going.
Oof. Uh, what do you mean? Like what favorite food in the Dominican side
Oh
or
yeah, oh yeah.
okay, I'd say pollo guisado with the moro de guandules, tostones, and I'm all set with that. I mean, I got lucky enough where when her grandma's in town, she'll cook for us, and she'll live at the house we were at for a couple months a year. So we're very spoiled. My mother-in-law cooks, my wife cooks, and then Frank that you met, my father-in-law, he's great on the grill. He makes a great sancocho, so we're all set over there.
Yeah, pollo guisado is actually some of my favorite too. I love mango in the morning. I don't know if you do
Oh,
try
absolutely, yeah.
golpe. So maybe one day if I get myself out there, I'll bring some presidente and we can have a good
Oh,
time.
nice. Absolutely, I'm in.
Okay, so you arrived in Chicago, like we mentioned. You start mashing. People can't hardly figure out who you are, but my group chat lights up. All these Cubs fans are just like, who is Frank Schwindel? So tell us about your first experiences here, finding a place to stay and then really just like being accepted by us Cubs fans.
Ooh, that's a good question because I was bouncing around all over. I had one suitcase with me, so I know one of the jokes on Twitter my buddy showed me was that I was on like a 6 shirt rotation with my travel shirts. They caught me traveling to the field, and so I was like, man, I at least got to rotate the days so the cameras will, not think I wear the same thing every day. But no, it was cool because I got to experience a bunch. I stayed downtown for a couple series. I stayed by the field at the Zachary and a couple of those places nearby for a couple series. So I got to see a bunch of things that I normally wouldn't if I was just in a set apartment or set
Mhm.
house, whatever. But and then wherever I was hitting the best, I would just check back into there when we got back from the road. So
Not
stuff like that. So it was
not
fun.
not superstitious, but a little stitious.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that, man. That's so awesome. And I'll just say from my perspective, when we have turnover and things like that on the business side happen, it's really nice to see just new energy and just like a lot of fun. That's really what brought us through the end of last year. It's just like it felt like the guys gelled so well. And talk a little bit about what the clubhouse was like and how you kind of made friends. You've bounced around a lot, so I'm sure that's like something that's not new to you, but now you have a new home here in Chicago. So what's the camaraderie been like with you and some of the guys?
Oh, the guys are awesome. It wasn't an easy spot to come into. Those first couple days, maybe the morale was a little down, but it's had to be tough. They're losing their best friends and a lot of their best players to other teams. So it's got to be tough seeing that from the other end. But seeing a bunch of guys who want it real bad, just want to have fun and stay there and contribute and win some ball games. I think it was a new energy that it kind of helped the clubhouse out. And there was a lot of guys that are getting a shot for the first time and, some steady playing time that were hungry and wanted, to play well and show people what they can do. So I thought it was a great energy. We were in a bunch of games. We were playing some great baseball. The wins and losses weren't as we wanted, but I think we were playing some good ball and surprised a lot of people. So we got a couple huge additions now this offseason, and I think we can we have a lineup that could surprise some people.
I agree, man. I'm an eternal optimist, and I try and find the best in most situations. Like I remember watching the game when Romine hit the homer off of Craig Kimbrell. I'm like, man, this is our World Series right now. Like I was so happy for him hitting that ball out. So I love that you spoke about the new energy and the new additions, and you say you think you can surprise. Talk a little bit about some of your goals for this season personally, and how special April 7th will be versus the Brewers. I'm assuming you'll have the whole gang in town for opening day.
Yeah, we'll have a bunch there, even more the next weekend. But no, I'm not going to throw any numbers out there. But I just want to build off the success. I'm not expecting 400 with stuff like that. But I want to build off last year. I want to put a bunch of good at bats together, and drive guys in and win some ball games. So I think I showed a little taste of what I can do last year. So I want to build off that, and worst case, do the exact same thing.
Yeah, I mean, you laid a good foundation from my perspective. I think you're going to be a rock solid person in the middle of this lineup, and we, as Cubs fans, can't wait to see what the next step is for you. So good on you for not even putting too much pressure on yourself, just obviously continuing the success that you've had. So I know you're really busy, and I'm going to get you out of here, but I heard that you have a pizza named after you in your hometown. I need to know what's on it and how can Cubs fans get it, because if I got to go all the way to New York, I'm going to want to find it. And I really want to know about this pizza, man.
So this pizza place is right down the road from my house. And my family grew up, I think all three of my cousins work there that live in town. My wife worked there. Her sister worked there.
Wow.
And it's just a great spot to be. Great family that owns it. And it was on the bar stool. Dave Portnoy gave it an 8.9. So that was their claim to fame. And they actually shipped a couple pies out to Wrigley. So for the Cubs staff to enjoy, but my personal pie is the Schwindy City pie. So it's like a tailgate one. So it's cut in squares like a Chicago style, but not the deep dish. It's a half buffalo chicken, half barbecue chicken. So that's their two top selling pies. So it's a good idea from there. And it's a good tailgate or like party appetizer type pie. So we'll have them send a couple out there for us.
Yeah, man, that sounds pretty good. I could definitely get down with that at 11 a.m. maybe on April 7th before opening.
Yeah, there you go. Yep, fuel up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so on the way out, I know that you spoke a lot about your family, and one of the quotes that you had really stuck with me when you said they gave me everything they had growing up, and I feel the same way with my family. So just give a little shout out to your family on the way out, and best of luck this season.
No, absolutely. I appreciate it. Yeah, couldn't do it without them, and they've been the best. And they'll be in Chicago a bunch, so you'll probably meet them at some point.
I can't wait, man. Thank you for your time, and good luck this season, man.
I appreciate it. Nice meeting you. I'll see you out there.
All righty.